So this week in our cycle of Torah, we read from the portion Lecha, which begins with this iconic story of God calling to Abraham, really he's known as Abram at this point, saying, Lecha, go forth. This portion sets Abraham on a journey that will establish him as the biblical archetype of man of faith, the first monotheist, the patriarch of our Jewish religion, the one who's promised descendants as numerous as the stars. When I first realized that this week was Lech Lecha, I had this warm feeling rush over me. This is one of our great stories. That feeling, it melted away, however, as I began looking deeper into the text of Lech Lecha. Just 10 verses after that call, Lech Lecha, we come to the following text about Abraham. When he had almost reached Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, who will later become known as Sarah, "Look now, I know what a beautiful woman you are. So when the Egyptians see you and say, 'This is his wife,' they may kill me, but you they'll keep alive. Please then say that you are my sister, so that on your account it may go well for me, and my life may be spared because of you." So, I've not read these words, I have read these words and the rest of the Torah portion multiple times throughout my life, but this section really jumped out at me more this week than it ever has before. Our matriarch, Sarah, really objectified because of her appearance so many times. It says how beautiful she is. And told, "Do this for me so that I can benefit. You're so beautiful, Sarah. You walk into a space and men just can't help themselves. They might kill me to get to you. Let Pharaoh think he has a chance with you. Maybe let him have his way with you a little bit. Not only will it protect me, I'll benefit from it. I'll be showered with gifts." A woman treated as an object. We really don't know what happened to Sarah when she was taken into Pharaoh's court. Women in the Bible don't often get a voice. Their stories remain untold. Now, this is where things are changing a bit from then to our modern world. In the last few weeks, women's stories have been moving to the forefront of our conversations and the news cycle. Almost 2 weeks ago, the Me Too hashtag went viral on social media. The rallying cry circulated with the hashtag was simple, and yet so complex. If all the women who have been sexually harassed or assaulted wrote Me Too as a status, we might give people a sense of the magnitude of the problem. Now, I don't know about you, but that Sunday evening and throughout the next day, my Facebook and social media were flooded with Me Too. Most of the women I know had a Me Too post. I posted Me Too. For those who identify as women, most, if not all of us, have likely had a Me Too story. This probably applies to some of the men here too as well. Whether an inappropriate comment, a catcall, an unwanted touch, or an experience of violence or assault. It's nothing new. Me Too went viral in response to an expose that revealed Harvey Weinstein's more than 3 decades of assault and harassment of women. The hashtag itself took off after actress Alyssa Milano posted asking women to share Me Too, to show the magnitude of the issue. But Me Too is nothing new. Activist Tarana Burke created the Me Too movement over 10 years ago, before hashtags were even a thing. Burke wanted to bring attention to women of color, especially young girls, whose stories of harassment and assault remain voiceless and unresolved far too often. This is not a new story. Did anyone else happen to notice that the Weinstein expose broke almost exactly a year after that infamous Access Hollywood tape broke. You know, the one where the man who has since ascended to the presidency of this country was bragging about sexually assaulting women. That was October 7th last year. This is not new. It's not new that we have people in positions of power who have terrible and long-standing histories of assault and harassment being revealed to us. Think about it. Just a few months ago, Bill O'Reilly. A little bit before that, Bill Cosby. The list, sadly, could continue. And what's perhaps more problematic and disturbing than the magnitude of immoral, abusive, reprehensible reality of this pervasive problem is that for so many of these powerful men, as well as the non-celebrities perpetrating these acts every day, for so many, the consequences for the men are minuscule, if any. There was a JTA article released last week entitled, "Harvey Weinstein Shows Us How Perpetrators Pose as Victims." It noted the pervasive dynamic that when accused of abusive or oppressive behavior, privileged people seem to expect that with the right combination of apparent remorse or therapy, others will comfort and forgive them. Whereas victims are pressured to disregard their own feelings in order to help perpetrators and others feel better about themselves. I have to tell you, there was this small moment last week when Me Too was everywhere, and I was very energized by the swell of action. But I thought to myself, this will soon fade and become old news. In 2 weeks, something else will have happened, and talking about the epidemic of harassment and assault of women will just seem irrelevant, as though I'm trying to revive some story that's we're over already, so 2 weeks ago. But to my fortunate dismay, last weekend, our own city broke a story that put this at the forefront of our conscience and conversation once again. Headline: John Besh Restaurants Fostered Culture of Sexual Harassment, 25 Women Say. Headline: John Besh, facing sexual harassment allegations, leaves the restaurant company he founded. Writer Anne Friedman recently tweeted, "Every industry has at least one of these powerful creeps. Look around. Do you know who the Weinstein is?" It's true. And to add insult to injury, this isn't being perpetrated solely by people in positions of power. A pastor recently published an article, 21 stories of pastors being sexually harassed and abused inside their churches, #MeToo. The author collected stories from female colleagues. Just a few examples. A male colleague in my former call routinely said in worship when we had joint services together, "I won't be surprised when all the men switch to her church. I'd rather watch her preach than me too." Another: after worship, a woman introduced me to her friend who was visiting. In front of a group of middle-aged women, she said something like, "If my pastor were this cute, I'd find sermons a lot more interesting." And they all laughed about it together, as if I wasn't even there. Another: a funeral home director ran his hand up my thigh while he gave me a ride in the hearse to the graveside service. He was my ride back, and I felt trapped. I said nothing. I never told anybody in my last ministry context because it didn't seem bad enough. Now, these stories, just a few of many, might come from the Christian community, but we can change the word church to synagogue, the word pastor to rabbi, and I guarantee plenty of our colleagues have the same stories. The harsh reality is that not even our fantastic progressive Jewish institutions are immune. A colleague of mine, currently in her final year of cantorial school, posted the following on her Facebook page in the wake of the Me Too campaign. "Today, I will walk my usual route to the subway, past the construction workers who loiter on both sides of the sidewalk as I make my way, head lowered through a narrow path of their catcalls. I'll ride the train with my eyes glued to my phone, avoiding the leers of the man-spreader across from me who won't look away until I reach my next stop. Sometimes he'll get off the train too, and then I'll speed walk with my keys clenched in my fist, glancing behind me every few steps to make sure I'm not being followed. Me too. The narrative in and of itself is upsetting, like so many other stories bravely shared. And then this happened. Amidst the comments of support from men and women alike, one person wrote, "At what point does this all become a little silly? Are we really asking men to stop being men totally? Personally, I know of a woman friend who was flattered recently when men responded to her with an appreciative reaction. Can a man no longer look at a woman he finds attractive? Can we no longer compliment her, flirt with her, or ask for a date? I want to validate the concerns of women without turning ourselves into cold, sexless, and distrustful beings who fear that every sign of appreciation is a potential threat." Needless to say, people responded to this comment. Now, I saw just a few eye rolls, maybe some looks of disgust as I was reading that. Now I'll tell you that the man who wrote that lovely comment is ordained as both a rabbi and a cantor and is employed in a Reform congregation. This rabbi continued posting to try to clarify and put his comment into context. "I lived over 30 years of my life in New York City. Most of my friends are women, and while I've heard annoying stories about these types of guys, I have not heard of them as being perceived as threats." Another. "There's a wide range of behaviors from both men and women that I find myself questioning at this point in my life. For example, if a woman dresses revealingly or provocatively, does she realize that she might get more attention than she's looking for? Why do some women respond to catcalls and other challenging male behaviors in a jovial or lighthearted way, and others are offended by them? Last, I would question whether any of the men who do these things represents a security threat. They may be immature, have troubling boundaries, or come from cultures or neighborhoods where this type of behavior is the norm, but I don't think they're a threat." We know that there are varying levels of trauma. Thank God none of my Me Too stories involve assault. The message of Me Too isn't trying to draw parallels between varying levels of trauma, rather to just shed a little light and visibility on a reality of life that's occurring on a daily basis. Within the first 24 hours of the hashtag MeToo being posted by Alyssa Milano, the hashtag was used in more than 12 million Facebook posts and comments. 12 million. Just Facebook. For many, it was the chance to express what had already been unspoken. A new and revolutionary opportunity to voice a truth and not feel so powerless. How is it that a story that is at once as new as our morning news cycle is also as old as Torah? Our Siddur Mishkan Tefillah provides us with the following reading. "Once or twice in a lifetime, a man or woman may choose a radical leaving, having heard Lech, Lecha, go forth. God disturbs us toward our destiny by hard events and by freedom's now urgent voice, which explode and confirm who we are. We don't like leaving, but God loves becoming." We are in a Lech Lecha moment. The cycle of harassment and assaults has always existed, but now is the time that we're organizing. Many have asked, what makes this different? Why is this still in the news cycle? Why are there more stories finally coming out? Well, people are organizing. coming together as a society and as a large, loud voice saying, enough. The call of Lech Lecha isn't easy. It's disturbing and uncomfortable, life-altering even. But it's urgent, and it's calling us.